we're on the first super wide line on Daf Yud Beis Amud Beis. So I just want to go back to a couple of fascinating things that I saw. On the top of Yud Beis Amud Beis, we learned about the pasuk V'yoyim Hashvi K'toy V'leiv Hamelach B'yoyim, and the Gemara asked, up until the seventh day, was Achashverosh not drunk? So I saw a fascinating shtickle from the Gaon Yaakov, who's on the side of the Ein Yaakov, and he says that Achashverosh had a very strategic plan. Remember, we were right at the end of the period of time where we thought that the Golus would be over, and Achashverosh wants to try to seal fate of Klal Yisrael so that the Golus shouldn't end and he would stay in power forever. So what his plan was to bring out his wife, and all of the great ministers would bring out their wives, and they would be dancing nude, and it would be literally like a strip club. It would be geferlich, and with all the Jews there, it would create a terrible michshol, and it would lead Klal Yisrael to do znus, and that would destroy their hopes of being able to come back to the Beis Hamikdash. That was his plan. So what happened was on Shabbos, B'yom Shvi, Gemara says, and he sends to Vashti to come. Vashti tells him, Achashverosh, look around. There's not a Jew to be found here, because the Yidden, although they came to the party of Achashverosh, they didn't come on Shabbos. Why didn't they come on Shabbos? Because we learned it was the Chatzar Bisan, it was outside, and they're afraid if they would spill a drink, it would spill on the grass, and that's a reya, right? You're not supposed to eat and drink on grass on Shabbos because you might spill, it'll be zereya. So because of that, the Jews did not show up on Shabbos. So Vashti told her husband, are you crazy? Look around. There's no Jews here. The plan is no good. We have to do this on the weekday. So that's why it says, Achashverosh also wouldn't have wanted to do this today because he wanted to be Machshel the Eden. But since he was drunk, he got famished. And that's why he wanted her to come today. But you said you're messing up our whole plan. Our whole plan was to be Machshel Eden. That was one fascinating thing that I saw. The other fascinating thing that I saw is the Gemara tells us that if we just learned it at the end of yesterday, if it wasn't for the fact that they sent out the Geras Rishonos, which said Liais Kol Is Sarah Beveso Yimudabel Kol Shayvanoi Kol Shanamoy Lo Nishtayr Misonaim Shal Yisrael Sarah Polo, just 2-3 lines back. And the Gemara tells us the Pashup Shad is that once Achashverosh proved himself to be a Brandon, a fool, nobody bothered listening to him. So what happened is normally the anti-Semites, if they would be sent a letter from the king stating that on Yud Gimel Adar you can slaughter the Jews, they wouldn't wait till Yud Gimel Adar. Zerizin Makdim al mitzvahs. They would have started slaughtering the Jews right away. Achashverosh had already lost his credibility by them because of the foolish decree he sent out earlier. They weren't so sure they wanted to proceed. They wanted to wait and see what happens. And that's why they waited long enough for the Mapecha to happen, and they were able to send out a second set of letters to cancel the Hashemada of Klal Yisrael. But I saw another very interesting shot. Why is it Liais Kolis Sarah Bevesa? That we understand. But what do Medaber Kol Shainamo? I mean, there's many things that should happen in the household if the husband's supposed to be the boss. He gets the food that he likes, the dress code should be the way he likes. Vos up is Medaber Kol Shainamo. So Yaakov says fascinating. He says, think about it. Achashverosh wasn't directly speaking to Vashti. He sent messengers to her to come, right? So think about it. We know what a press secretary is supposed to do. Look at Jen Psaki, what she has to do to polish up the nonsense that comes out of Biden's mouth, right? They make sure it's good. So when Vashti sent back a very sharp answer to Achashverosh, they wouldn't have delivered it exactly as she described it. They would have said she's not feeling well, she's not able to come, right? They're trying to make it work. So what shot that they would go back and repeat to Achashverosh the same nasty derogatory remarks that she made doesn't make any sense. So it must be that they didn't speak the normal language that everybody spoke. They had a we know that when we were growing up, all the old Hungarians would always be talking about you in front of your face, and you had no idea what they're talking about. Or when your parents wanted to say something that you shouldn't understand, they said it in Yiddish, they said it in Hungarian, they said it in a language you don't understand. So Achashverosh and Vashti also had this language where they could speak that nobody understood. So what happened was she gave a message exactly as it was. Those words that you said, Bar Aharudai, the Abba Lakabal Alpha, that whole sentence, they had no idea what it meant, but they delivered word for word the message that she gave over, not even knowing what it meant. And that led to the whole catastrophe with Vashti. So because of that, Achashverosh said, from now on, it's Medaber Kil Shoin Amoy. She has to speak the normal language of the nation that he's in so that diplomacy can take over and we shouldn't have these dangerous situations. Zok to Gemara, if it wasn't for that rule that you have to stick to the language of the father, that Gzeira meant that in all Yiddish Heiser, they had to speak Lashon Kodesh. They had to speak the Yiddish Lashon. One of the reasons out of Golos is Lashinu Shemam, Lashinu Lashoinam, and Lashinu Mabusham. So the Anyaka brings down from somewhere else is Lashinu Shemam, Lashinu Lashoinam, and they didn't intermarry. That was a third thing. If you have 2 out of 3, you could be saved, he says. 2 out of 3 could save you. Now we know that in the Golos Babel, in those 70 years, there was terrible intermarriage to the point that Ezra had to, when he brought Eden back to Yerushalayim, he had to tell them to divorce their non-Jewish wives. So you see, they were missing one leg. So if they didn't have the Lashinu Shemam and the Lashinu Lashoinam, lo nishtayer misanein she'Yisrael Torah to Poland, because they would be missing a foundation. But since they made that decree that you have to speak the language of Kol Amoy, all the Eden have to speak Hebrew, and because of that, it kept them intact. That's what the Yaakov said. I thought that was fascinating. Okay, so let's go back to it. I don't know. We don't attack him now because he's going to argue with the Ben Yehoyada said later. Wait, I lost my pointer. What was my pointer? Pointer's not here. Okay. Zok Tehilagum. I have to. My cuticles are all things. In here. It's supposed to be. No, it was supposed to be in this bag, but maybe it fell out of our homes. Could it fell out? Or maybe they used it for the Sefer Torah, not realizing that. Oh no, it's in here. I found it in here. It's hiding in here. Who uses a pointer for a Sefer Torah? Zok Tehilagum Gemara. Zok Tehilagum Gemara. Vayafkei Hamelach Pekidim. We need about Karav. Vayafkei Hamelach Pekidim. Omarav. My Dechsiv. It says in the pasuk, Kol Orim Yasa B'das. A clever person does things smartly. Uchasil, a fool, Yifresh Avlos. He will spread out. Everybody will know. It'll be publicized. His nonsense. I just want to pronounce the word properly. Ivelas. Okay. Zok to Gemara. Kol Orim Yasa B'das. A clever person does things cleverly. Zed David. This is David HaMelech L'Siv. David was also looking for a young woman at the end of his life when he was older. One woman only we're going to find. We're going to search and we're going to find one woman. Therefore, anybody who had a daughter, such a schus to marry David HaMelech, I seen the hell brought them to the committee. Hopefully his daughter would be chosen as the wife of David HaMelech. But Uchsil, Yifrosh, Ivelas, Achashverosh, Tichsiv Ayavke HaMelech Pekidim. Achashverosh was going to abuse thousands and thousands of women like he did every night. But all of them got discarded except for one. Who wants to subject their daughter to such abuse? So therefore, Kolman Dahavale Barta Itmuramine. They hid her from the committee because they're just subjecting their daughter to defilement and abuse. Ish Yehudi Haya B'Shushan Abira Ushmoi Mordechai Ben Yair Ben Shimi Ben Kish Ishimi. Micah Omar. Why did it list off this whole yichus of Mordechai? It can't be to tell us where he comes from, because then it should have continued listing generation after generation until Binyamin, so that we know where he comes from. It just stops in the middle. So clearly these names weren't his forefathers, they were different names that described him. Ili Yechusa, Ka'asali Yachsev Azlad Yamin, it should go all the way back. Alamaish Nahani, Zaktamar Tana Kulan al Shemoy Nikro. All of these were names for Mordechai himself. Ben Yair, what does that mean? Ben Sheheir Eineim Shal Yisrael B'Tfilosai. He lit up the eyes of Klal Yisrael with his tefillos. Ben Shimi, Ben Sheshama El Tfilosai. A person who they heard his tefillos. Ben Kish, Hikish Al Sari Rachamim. He knocked on the doors of Rachamim. V'Niftuchuloi, and they opened for him. Karila Yehudi. right? We say Ish Yehudi Hayu B'Shushan Abeir. Amma Yehuda Kasi. That means he came from Shevet Yehuda. But the Karli Yamini, Amma Binyamin Kasi. So where was he from? Was he from Yehuda or was he from Binyamin? And Rab Nachman Mordechai Muchter ben Yemusay Haya. Mordechai had beautiful names that described all of his wonderful attributes, and therefore he was claimed by everybody. Amar Rabba Bar Bachana Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Aviv mi Binyamin. His father was from Shevet Binyamin. The Imai mi Yehuda, and his mother was from Shevet Yehuda. Rabbanan says, Mishpachos Miskar Zubusu. The families of Binyamin and the families of Yehuda would sort of argue with each other about who gets the credit for the great Mordechai. Mishpachos Yudai Meres, they said, Ana Garim. You know why? The Misyalid Mordechai. I was Garim that Mordechai should be born. You know why? The Leikatle David L'Shimi ben Gera. David, who was from Shevet Yehuda, could have killed Shimi ben Gera, who was the grandfather of Mordechai, and he didn't. So it's because of us. So since he didn't kill Shimon ben Gera, we take. So there was Ayid and Nagud. I forgot who he was. And he always says, "You owe your shidduch to me because they called me about you and I didn't bashmutz you. So you see, you owe me your shidduch." So that's mamish like what this is over here. Umishpachas Binyamin Amra Minoi Kasi. He comes from our shevet. So everybody was claiming credit for Mordechai. I'm sorry? That's right. Maybe I know. Rav Amar, Knesset Yisrael Amra. Knesset Yisrael said L'idachisa. They were actually complaining both about Binyamin and both about Yehudi. You both messed us up. Ma Asal Yehudi, what did Yehudi mess us up? Uma Shilam Yemini, and how did Yemini mess us up? Ma Asal Yehudi, the Loikot L'David Shimi. Halavai, they should have killed Shimi. Who needed Mordechai? Mordechai caused us more trouble. These Yolit Minei Mordechai, the Mikne Haman, he shepherded with Haman. It's ungefangen with the Eisav. He shepherded Haman, he wouldn't bow down to him, and that caused us all these problems. Who needed it? Umashilim Liyamini, and what did the Yolim do for me? Like Kotle Shol Agag, these Yolit Minei Haman, the Mitzari Yisrael. And Binyamin also messed me up because Shol didn't kill Agag. Had he killed Agag, we wouldn't have had Purim. I'm not sure if that's, maybe then they were upset. Now we're pretty happy. I would tell you, Shol is the Shol Hamelech is the idol of every yeshiva. And this Shol is the Bank of Purim. Rabbi Yochanan Amar La'olam mi Binyamin Kasi. Really, Mordechai came from Shevet Binyamin. Amakar La Yehudi Al Shem Shakofar B'Avodah Zarah, because he was kofer in Avodah Zarah. Shekol HaKofer B'Avodah Zarah. Whoever is kofer in Avodah Zarah, Nikra Yehudi is called a Yehudi. Tichsiv. It says Isi Gurvan Yehudayin, and if you look at the Torah Shalom, it says these are Yehudayin. What describes them? Because the Hava, the Hakemta Loisogin, they don't bow down to your false gods and they don't bow down to your idols. That's a Yehudi. Abshim ben Pazi, if you have a pasach with Divrei Hayamim, when he would say his class in Divrei Hayamim, Amar Hachi, he would say this. Now we just came off of a sugya that lists off a whole bunch of names, Ben Yair, Ben Shimon, Ben Kish, and we say it doesn't really mean different people that he's coming from. Rather, it's all referring to him. There's different words used to describe Mordechai. So we're going to find something similar over here. Amar Hachi, Kol Devarecha Echatim. All of the names in Divrei Hayamim are one. V'ani Yodim the Darshan, and we know how to darshan. And he's focusing on this pasuk. It says the Isha, the Ishtoy and his wife Hayuhidia, the woman that was a Yehudia. Yolda es Yered Avigdar, Ves Chaver Avi Soichoi, Ves Yukusil Avi Zanoyach. So you would think that these are three different children, but we're going to soon see these were all the same person. The Ele b'nei Basya, these were the children of Basya Baspara. Asher Lokach Mered. So it seems like Mered married Basya Basparoi, and this Basparoi was also a Yehudia, and she gave birth to all these people. So let's see how the Gemara darshans. Vishda Yehudia Yolda es Yered Avigdar. Not a Victor, this is talking about Yulad, a Victor, you see? A Vigdor, the Schever, Avisoichai, Aveshikusil, Avizanoyach, Ve'ela, B'nei Vasha, Baspara, Shalot, Nechmer. Zok Gemara, Amai Kari La Yehudis. Why was she called Yehudis? Yehudiha. Why was she called Yehudiha? I'm sorry. Hashem Shekafar B'Avodah Zarah, because she denied Avodah Zarah. How do you know Basha Baspara denied Avodah Zarah? Yechsiv Ateirid Baspara Licher Saliyar. She went to bathe in the yard. So she's going to the mikveh. In Rashi, she went to the mikveh to be misgayer. So you see that she was rejecting the Avodah Zarah. From Rabbi Yochanan, she yarder lirchot Megillulei beisavi. Yolda. Correct.
So
Yeah.
spoke about
Yeah.
it.
Oh.
He said, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Power didn't have enough bathhouses in his town.
Uh-huh.
He had to go down to the
So it
Nile.
must be because she was in denial. She was in denial. She was denying the Zara. Yeah. Yolda. So we're talking about Moshe Rabbeinu here, right? We know one of Moshe Rabbeinu's nicknames was Avigdor. So Yolda, she gave birth to Moshe Rabbeinu. For Rabuya Rabise, she just raised him. She didn't give birth to him. Learn this teaches you. She called him Magadol Yosem v'Yisayim b'Seich Beisoy. One who raises a Yosem or Yisayim in their house. It's as if you gave birth to them. You get to write them off tax season. Yered, Zeh Moshe. This was Moshe Rabbeinu. Why was it called Yered? She Yered Lehem Yisrael Mon B'Yamav. Because in his days, he brought down in his chus, he brought Mon for Klal Yisrael. If you see the little aleph, the Gra says because he brought them Torah in his days. Gadar, Shagadar Pirtzaysein Shal Yisrael. He fixed up the broken fences amongst Klal Yisrael, meaning he made sure to patch up the ruchnis to keep them in check. Chaver Shechiber Es Yisrael Lavin Shebashamayim. He connected Klal Yisrael to their Father in heaven. Soichoi Shenas Alahem Kesuka. He was a shelter for them. Yukasiel Shekavu Yisrael Lakel B'Yamav. Klal Yisrael had a chukah for the Rebbeinu from his days. He created a special love between Klal Yisrael and the Rebbeinu. Zenuach, minimized, push away. Shezniach Avoneseim Shal Yisrael. Now, 3 times in the pasuk it says Avi, Avi, Avi. So we learn from there Av b'Torah, Av b'Chachma, Av b'Nevius. Moshe was supreme.
So from all these children of Bas Paroi, she didn't give birth to more.
This is all Moshe. These are all names to describe Moshe. That's right.
So she had no children.
At least at that point.
So
Yeah. Ve'ele b'nei Basya asher lokach Mered. Mered Shemoy. Basya's husband was not named Mered, but like Kalev Shemoy, he was Kalev. From our Gemara, it seems like it was the Kalev Ben Yefuna, but there are Rishonim or other sugis that say that it was a grandfather of our Kalev. Omar Kadosh Baruch Hu Yove Kalev Shemored Ba'atzas Meraglim. V'yisa es Basparei Shemorda Begilule Beisavia. What a good shidduch. Zok to Gemara. Asher Haglam Yerushalayim. Yeah, it was. Asher Haglam Yerushalayim. Amarav. It doesn't say that he was sent into Gullus together with everybody else. Haglam means he voluntarily went down to Gullus to accompany those that were sent there. Amarav Shagalam Yatzma. He went by himself. Now, unfortunately, tell us why did he go? He went because he knew that only he would be able to save Klal Yisrael from the Eitz of Haman. And therefore he felt he needed to be there. And that's why he went to accompany them into Gullus.
So according to the Gemara, I'm going back a little bit. Kalev was the same Kalev.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. That's correct.
And that's why
He was an old man. He must have been an old man then. Yeah. He Oymen is Hadassah. He raised Hadassah. Karila Hadassah, she was called Hadassah. The Karila Esther, and she was called Esther. What was her real name? Tanya Meir Omer Esther Shema. Her name was Esther. The Lama Nikra Shema Hadassah. Al Shem Atzadikim Shenikra Hadassah. Because you find the Torah refers to
Q&A, right?
as Hadassah. V'cheinu Omer. Someone had noise behind it. V'cheinu Omer. Who Omer ben Hadassah. It's talking about Rebbeinu Shalom amongst the Tzadikim. It says Omer ben Hadassah. So you see Tzadikim are referred to as Hadassah. V'domer Hadassah Shema. Her name was Hadassah. That's what they named her by the Kiddush. Lama Nikra Shema Esther. So why did people refer to her as Esther? Al Shem Shahoisa Masteres Tevarel. Because she was very discreet. She was very private. She kept private. Shinemar says in the pasuk, Ein Esther Magedes es Ama v'Smeiladata. She refused to divulge her nation and her birthplace. Rabbi Nehemiah Omer Hadassah Shema. Her name was Hadassah. Lama Nikra Esther. Why did she have the nickname Esther? Shahayu Umoy Sa'olam Karinai Al Shem Estahar. A star, Rashi tells us, is the beautiful moon. So she was called the beautiful moon. Sounds like an Indian type of name.
I know.
Like a First Nations name.
I know that Mordecai and Esther are both of Persian extraction.
Ben Azai Omer Esther. What does Esther mean? Just right, like the mother bear and the father bear and the little bear's bed and porridge was just right. Lo yarucha v'lo ksara haisa. Elabeni is kadasa. She wasn't tall, she wasn't short, she was just perfect, like Hadassah, like a Hadassah.
Yossi, is there any midrashim? Sorry to jump back to what happened to Bas Paroi. Did she go out of Mitzrayim? Did Moshe treat her nicely? Did I miss that at all?
I don't know specifically about it, But if she married Kalev, she probably had to be
Well,
with
she
him.
did marry Kalev. I missed, so that's what I missed. She married Kalev. This was one of Kalev's. Kalev got married again, I think. 'Cause
Yeah,
didn't
well,
Kalev
this
marry
must have been
also
one of his latest
Rachel?
wives, 'cause by this time, Kalev was very old, right? Kalev was by Yitzis Mitzrayim, wasn't he? Kalev was by Yitzis, he was in the Midbar, right?
He was
Kalev
one
in
of the
Midbar.
Meraglim. He made it all the way to 40
That's right. And
years.
now, how old is he? This is hundreds of years later, after the Churban Bayis. It was like 500-600 years later.
As an aside, my sister-in-law told me when she got.
Yeah, this is after the Churban Bayis Rishon. I'm sorry, I'm confused. I'm sorry. I'm talking about the Megilla. You're right, I'm confused. Right.
Sorry.
Right. Kalev, right. So Kalev was in Mitzrayim, and then he was in the, yeah, so that's not so much far. Yeah, so it's not so bad. Oh, so forget this is Kalev in his youth. Yeah, I got mixed up.
But
Sorry.
as an aside, my sister-in-law told me that when she became a mother, she started to realize why the mama's porridge was always cold.
Till she got to it. Dr. Marvaiter.
I missed it.
Esther Yira Karoikasoya. Esther was green. She could have been greener. That's how green it is. She just got off the boat. She could have been greener. The chut shel chesed moshe chaleha. But she had chen ki ein la ova aim. And then a moment later, uvemois aviv ima. Why is it repeating it? We know she was a Yisayma. Lomali. Why did it repeat uvemois aviv ima? To tell us she wasn't Tama Yisayma. She never met her parents. Amar Bacha Ibarta, as soon as her mother became expecting, Mesa Via, her father died during the pregnancy. Yaldasa Mesa Ima, and the mother died at birth. So therefore, she never saw her parents. Mesa Via Ima, Lakacha Mordechai Loy Labas. Mordechai took her as a daughter, but as he raised her, eventually she became a wife. Tana Mishum of Meir, I'll take her Labas Ela Labayis. Bayis means Beisai Zu Ishtoi, it was a wife. I'm assuming after he raised her, otherwise he could have been arrested. Now this is when David HaMelech was getting his musar for taking Bathsheba away from Uriah, right? So the Novi told David HaMoshel, well, the Rosh ain't called, this poor man had nothing. Kim Kivsa Achas Katana, except this small little sheep, Asher Kana that he bought. The Yichaya, the Tigdalima, he raised it with him, with his children, Yachta together, Mipita Soichal, this little sheep ate from his bread, and it slept in his lap. But the Hiloi Kavas, and this little sheep was like his daughter. Of course, it was referring to Bathsheba, his wife. Someone who sleeps in his lap is like a daughter? That doesn't sound right. Ella Labayis, someone who sleeps in his lap would really describe a wife. So you see the word bias over there. Refers to a wife. Hachanami labayis. When it says labas, it means labayis. Mordechai took Esther as his wife. She had these seven na'arais. Amarava, for some reason in this lockup that she was in, she was not. It was like a casino. She was not given a calendar. She didn't know what day it was. So how did she keep cheshbon of which day was Shabbos? She set up a schedule that every day there should be a different Misharis, and she knew on the day that a certain Misharis was there, that must have been Shabbos because it was a cycle of 7 days. Shabbos. I hope no one ever took a day off and asked someone to cover for them, because that would have caused a lot of confusion. They were treated differently. What does that mean? She got kosher food. While everybody else on the plane got treifa food, she got her kosher dinner, which means she got her food first, because they always give out the kosher meals first, right? Shmuel Amar, and Shmuel says, Shechila kadle de chazire. They sent her fat pieces of chazer. Rashi says that she actually ate that chazer. Could you believe it? Let's look at Rashi. Kadle de chazire, bukun shmeinis, fatty pieces of chazer meat. She didn't get an einish because she didn't have what to eat. Toysva says chas v'shalom. Toysva says kadi the chazir v'chas v'shalom he. The chas v'shalom he lo ha'ishay. There's no way she ate it.
There's no fruit and no nothing. There's no way.
She asked for salad. Could I have a side of salad with that, right? Or a fresh fruit? Zok the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Zeroinim. She asked for legumes. She had beans. They gave her beans so she could eat kosher. The Chenu Omer, it says by the Daniel, a meltzar, noisei pas begum. The meltzar carried this treifin of bread, and the noislim zaroinim, but he also gave them these types of seeds. And if you look at the pasuk later, it says that 6 months later, the people who only ate those zaroinim, those legumes, looked much stronger, much healthier. Which means those that were on a vegetarian diet looked much healthier after 6 months. Very, very schwer pasuk. Sehr schwer zu verstehen. Sagt die Gemara weiter. Shisha Chadoshim b'Shem Amor. She was 6 months in Shem Amor.
You can't see verstehen the Rebbeinu Shalom way of doing things.
Yeah. It was B'derech Nes. That's right. I hear that. It was B'derech Nes. That makes sense. But that's a good shot. Shisha Chadoshim b'Shem Amor. In Yeshiva would have called that a grease ball. She was soaking for 6 months in this Shem Amor. My Shem Amor. And Priya Amor Satchis. What is Satchis? So I think the Likutei Rashi over here says that Satchis is, let's say, Lo Yisparish. It doesn't say, but Shekarin Balshema was balsam oil. It's what?
Did it come with gold and frankincense?
I'm not sure, but I remember we learned about the balsam oil that the mother-in-law would smear on her daughter-in-law who she loved, and then she would offer her light. Then she would offer her light, and she would blow it up, right? Okay, it was like magnesium. Okay, Rav Huna said shemen zayish lahevi shlish. It was the oil from olives that were not yet grown a third. So it's a very sharp type of oil. And why would that be good? Tanya Bida Aimer Ampikanun, this type of thing that's called Ampikanun, is shemen zayish lahevi shlish. Rashi says that's regarding that it's possible to use that oil for a carbon, for a mincha. I say, why would you put on this sharp type of oil? Shemeser esaseir, it takes off your hair, so it acts as a hair remover. It's like a waxing. And it gives the skin a glow, a beautiful glow. It says, which means that every night Achashverosh hired an escort, and she came in the evening and she left in the morning. So it's teaching us about his intimacy habits. So Zok the Gemara, Amar B'Yochanan, Mignusa Shal Oisha Rasha. From the gnus of this Russia, this pig that he was, that he defiled a different girl every night, day in, day out. It's disgusting what he did. But Lamadnu Shvachai, a little bit of good seeped out. At least he kept his intimacy activities to the nighttime, which is its knees stick away. It says that he asked her noises chaim. Amar Belazar, Malamit Shalakol Echad ve'Echad Nidvis Aloi Kul Masay. Everybody assumed that she was from their nation. Esther al Melech Achashverosh al Beis Malchusai v'Chodesh Asiri v'Chodesh Teves. Why did Hashem make it that her slot should work out in a cold night? Because it's Yerech Shinahedem Guf Min Aguf. Hashem made it b'davka that it's a time where people crave such intimacy because you're cold, and he was able to cuddle with a warm body. That would add to his pleasure, which would make it more that she should be selected. And the Rebbeinu Shalom, of course, wanted that Esther should be selected. That's right. So Amarav, this is mamish a little bit nauseating. If when he was with her, he wanted to feel like he was with a basula, Tom, that's what she felt like. Tom Bu'ula, if he wanted to feel like he was with a Bula, Tom. I can't tell you that I understand Vudu Retzech, but Achashverosh was a manuvel, and he had different tastes, and whatever he wanted, whatever type of feeling he was looking for, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it that he should have.
Because she was Takabula. That's like today.
That's right. But it's just, he made a big party. Ovid Mishta, he made a big party, and she still refused to reveal her ancestry and her nation. Doli Kaga, he told everybody tax-free. There was a head tax, and he said, because of Esther, I'm releasing everybody from their head tax. He told everybody, read my lips. Right? He said, no new taxes. Read my lips. And then Shadar Pardishni, and then he gave presents to all of the different officers, Villa Galilei. So Fragan, the Achrayim, why in the world would the fact that he's giving tax breaks and he's giving out presents and he's making parties, why in the world would that induce her to reveal her nation? What does she care? What does she have thoughts about that? So the Achrayim are masber that earlier the Medrash tells us that Haman was such a lowlife when Vashti was down and Memuchan was giving advice, he started disparaging not only her, but her nationality of where she came from. And that was part of what he used to condemn her because he hated her. So Esther, or Achashverosh thought at least, Esther wasn't saying where she came from because that's what Mordechai told her to do. But Achashverosh thought that maybe the reason why Esther's afraid to reveal her nationality is because that's what was contributing to Vashti getting killed. So he said, "Oh, she probably knows I'm only picking her because I just killed Vashti. And I killed Vashti because I believed all the disparaging things. I found out about her nationality. Maybe she's spooked about that. So let me make all these parties on her behalf, so everybody will love her. The citizens will love her. The officers will love her. The merchants will love her. If everybody loves her, she'll feel a little bit more secure, and maybe then she'll feel comfortable giving out her nationality."
Yosy,
But
Yosy,
yes.
why couldn't he just command her? It seems she was scared of him. She did a lot of things. She lived with him. She was always scared of him. Why couldn't he just command her to tell what her nation was?
Or else he'll cut her head off.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
He was afraid of cutting her. He cut off too many people's heads. He wasn't going to have another lady.
Uh-huh.
He did it once, and got scared off.
Could
If
be.
if she wasn't scared of him, she didn't have the right to live with him.
That's right. She was honest. I know. What? Yeah, he himself wasn't sorry for Mesa. He was afraid of her. I don't know. He was henpecked. I don't know. It's a good question. It's a very good question.
He loved her too much to do that. He loved her too much to command her.
Okay, that's a good story. So look what happened. Ubi covered Psula Shenis. He said, "Oh, you don't want to tell me? Okay, let me see what else is out there." Right? I remember when my wife turned 36, I said, "You know what? Maybe I'll trade you in for two 18-year-olds." So she said, "You know what? First find one, and then we'll talk." Right? So Chashresh says, let's look for somebody else. Where did he get this idea to make Esther jealous, to look for somebody else? Ozel Shokal Eitzim Mordechai. Achashverosh went to Mordechai, and he told Mordechai, "What am I going to do with my queen? I can't get her to tell me where she's from." So Mordechai told her, there's no better way to drive a woman crazy than to make her jealous that you're looking for somebody else. Then she'll for sure give you whatever you want. She'll tell you whatever you want to know.
Now, what did Mordechai have to gain?
One, I'm going to tell you in a second. And she still didn't say it. So why would Mordechai do that? The teretz is Mordechai wanted to get her released. Mordechai wanted to get her released from Achashverosh. So he figured if Achashverosh brings another woman, maybe he'll like another one better and he'll throw Esther out. So Mordechai was trying to find a way to get Esther released. That's why he did it. Amar Belazar. Belazar said, "My dechsiv." It says, "Lo yigra mitzadik einov." Kadosh Baruch Hu will give schar to tzaddikim for generations and generations. Generations later, Kadosh Baruch Hu was still giving people schar for their mitzvahs. Zog the Gemara, the schar tzniya she'oisa ba barachel. Bibal Rachel was a tznuah, and we're going to soon see why. Zochsa v'yotza mimena shol. She was zoicha that Shol HaMelech should come out of her, who was also a tznuah, that we're going to see. U'b'schar tzniya she'oisa ba b'shol, and since Shol HaMelech was a tznuah, Zocha v'yotzas mimenu Esther, he was zoicha that Esther HaMelech should come out of her. Umat tzniya she'oisa ba barachel, and this is a very famous story. Tichsiv Yagid Yaakov l'Rachel. Yaakov told Rachel, "Ki achi aviyahu." I am the brother of your father, which was not true. V'chi achi aviyahu. Yaakov was not Rachel's uncle; he was her cousin. V'loi ben achois aviyahu. He was the son of the sister of Rachel's father. Ella Amar la, he told her, "Mincivusly, I'd like you to marry me." Amar la, Rachel told him, "I'd be happy to marry you." Miu Abba Ramahu. I'm not sure if you're going to like your shver. You have to look into my family. You might find out that my father is a real swindler. And you're not going to be able to deal with him. He's going to run circles around you. Amar la, And this is what he meant, I'm his brother. Ochim anobar amos. I'm a match for him. I'm no pushover. I can also outswindle him. Amr lay. So she told him, I only want to marry you because you're a tzaddik. And now you're a swindler, maybe I don't want to marry you. Is it appropriate that you, the tzaddik Yaakov, should also be a crook? Amr la'in, it's 100% appropriate. In novelty tover, with someone straight, you should be straight. But then with a crook, you out crook him. Amar lo. So he asked her, Umayra Meyusa, tell me what are you expecting? What type of scam are you expecting your father to pull? Amar lo, she told him, Isli achzer de kashisha minoyu. I have an older sister, and I know that he's not going to marry me off before her. In other words, he's going to swap us out. So he says, no problem. I'm smarter than that. Moshe lo simonim. He gave her simonim. But kimota lelia, when the evening of the wedding came, Amar, she said, could you imagine how humiliated my dear sister Leah is going to be? Hashta michsavo achsoi. So therefore, Masartinu Nehala, she gave the simonim over to Leah. Behind the chsiv, and that's what the pasuk says. Vahiva boiker v'hinehi Leah. Only in the morning did Yaakov Avinu realize that she's Leah. Mechlal that hashta lav Leah, because she had the simonim. Alamitoich simonim shemosra rochel Leah lehavayada ad hashta. He didn't know that this was Leah until the morning lit up and he was able to see her. So the question is, how did that show tznius on Rachel's part? Where did that show tznius? It shows sacrifice. Where did it show tznius? So the Mefarshim tell us, how long did Rachel keep this secret? 6 years, right? He worked 6 years. He didn't get Rachel for 6 years. Leah didn't get for 6 years. For 6 years, it didn't come out once to Lavan. Rachel not once told her father about the simonim. For 6 years. And if Lavan would have known about the simonim, he would never have tried such a scam, because he would have known he would have gotten caught. The only reason why Lavan tried this scam is because he didn't know about the simonim at all. So she kept the secret. That's called the tenuah. She kept this special secret to herself for 6 years.
So any secret that a person gives is called a tenuah?
Yeah, tenuah is someone who keeps a secret. Keeping secrets is called
Keeping
tenuah.
secrets is called tenuah?
Correct.
You keep the combination to a safe for somebody else called a tenuah?
I guess so, yeah. So
This
Zok
wasn't Stam a secret. This was a secret. This was a simon that she is Rachel. Not that
she's talking about a safe with $1 million in it.
it's more than a safe of $1 million. You're giving away your life.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Lefichach zochsa v'yotzim min hashol. That's why Rachel was zoiche to have Shol come out of her. Umat sneeze hoysha b'shol. What was the great sneeze that was seen by Shol? The chsiv is dvar hamalucha lahigid loy asher Omar Shmuel. What happened was Shol was sent by his family, by his uncle, to speak to the Navi Shmuel to find where the mules, the asoinos that his uncle had, they disappeared. So he met up with Shmuel, and Shmuel said, "Don't worry, your uncle already found those mules. And by the way, now that you're here, I want to tell you, you're the next king. You're the first king that Klal Yisrael has," and he was Moshe. Shaul comes back, and his uncle says, "You know what happened?" And he says, "What do you mean what happened? You know already, you found the mules." But he didn't tell him anything about Mashiach. He just won the $1 million lottery. He just became the king, and he came back, and he didn't tell anybody. So that's well. That's also a secret, right?
And that's why you were so confident to tell me.
That's right. That's right. Zocha v'yotas b'menu Esther, and that's why he was zocha that Esther Amalek came out. When Hashem gives greatness to a person, it's not just for one generation; it's permanent. Hashem makes it forever. But if some generation gets too cocky and gaivadik, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu mashpiloi, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bring him down. Shenemar b'masurim b'zikim. Zok to Gemara weiter. This Maimer Mordechai Esther Oisa. This is a Gemara that if you have young children around, maybe you should ask them to leave the room. This is for mature audiences only. And when I was learning this Shabbos afternoon, I didn't realize it. Benos was there, Pirchei was there, but it's for mature audiences. Zok Ehel Gemara. This Maimer Mordechai Esther Oisa. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah. Shoysu Mara Damnida L'Chacham. Even when she was by Beis HaChashverosh, she still showed Myris needed to Chachamim. Kasher Haisha Bamni Eater, like she used to see, Mordechai used to tell everybody to keep Taras HaMishpacha. Question is, who is she keeping Taras HaMishpacha for? What's going on over here? So here's where it gets a little interesting. Amar Rabba Bar Lima Mishmei Derav. Shoisai Medes Micheko Shalach Hashverosh V'Toivelas V'Yosheves B'Chekes for Mordechai. Don't forget, she was still married to Mordechai. Every relation she had with Achashverosh was she was considered nenas, so she never became usher to her husband. So she would be with Achashverosh, and then she would toivel not for tumah, but just because she felt so disgusting and dirty after being with that monster, and then she had relations with her husband.
How about Kasher Shalom?
I'm sure she didn't tell him.
How would she get away with it? That's what I'm asking.
She did. She did. She did. The question here is there's a couple of problems here. So that's why she needed to keep herself Torah. She had to show her marriage. But the question here is, if two people are living with somebody, then she could become pregnant. You don't know from who. Al Tafchana, we know between two husbands, you always have to wait 3 months. So here, how did they deal with that? So the Meforshim tell us that she used contraception. When she was with Achashverosh, she used contraception. She was Mishameshes B'moich. But when she was with Mordechai, she did not use contraception. But this went on only while she was still mutter to Mordechai. But in the middle of the Megillah, she became also to Mordechai. When she went willingly to Achashverosh, after the fast, to plead on behalf of Yisrael, there she went willingly. The Kasher Avadi Avadi means I know I'm giving up my husband Mordechai because I'm going to be Osir Labalu Laboyel.
Wow.
And that's when, after that, she stopped using the moich, and that's when she became pregnant with Dayavish. After her marriage with Mordechai was ruined. It gets worse. Mordechai Yosy B'Shar Melech Kotzaf Bixan V'Seresh. Bixan and Sheresh got angry at their boss.
I still don't understand how she got away with it.
And she didn't see him very often, right?
It doesn't matter.
But you're soon going to see, it's going to get more, your cash is going to become schwer, because we're soon going to learn a little bit more. You know what TMI means? Too much information. We're going to learn a little bit of TMI about Achashverosh's mating habits. And your cash will become stronger.
I also know, by the way, that anybody who approached the Persian house Hanoshin, base Hanoshin, was killed. There was nobody that can go near like.
But she was a queen.
True, but the whole idea of being able to go.
But you're asking the cash on the mice. This happened. This happened. So Zok the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Sometimes Hiksav HaKadosh Baruch Hu Odin Al Avodav Lasas Ritzayin Tzadik. It sometimes happens that HaKadosh Baruch Hu make the Odin, the king, the master, angry at his avodim to help a tzaddik. Umanu Yosef. This happened by Yosef. Shnemer B'Shami telling our Ivri. Hashem made it the Shara Mashkin and the Shara Oifen should end up in jail so that they should help Yosef HaTzadik. Sometimes avodim al Adonai lasas nes latzadik, and sometimes Hashem makes that the servants should be angry with their boss to make a nes for a tzaddik. Umanu Mordechai. Hashem made that Bixen and Sheresh should hate their boss, and because of that, they wanted to conspire to kill him, which Mordechai was able to reveal, and that got him big credit in the books. So here's where it gets very, very interesting. If anybody has little children, I suggest you throw them out of the room now.
I don't understand.
I'm Rabbi Yochanan.
What's the difference of Rabbi Yochanan? I could does anything and everything to help a tzaddik. Why not?
Right, but now we're going to get into what happened. Now Rabbi Yochanan's getting into the nitty gritty of what happened. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Bixam v'Seresh Shnei Tarsim. They were Tarsim. It's the name of a place. Well, you mishapen Beloshan Tursi, and by coincidence, they happened to have spoken that language. And they figured, just like the two Hungarian ladies who always would talk about us in front of our faces, not thinking that we knew what they were talking about, usually right. But Aimrim, and they would say, this is what they said. Miyom Shabosazu. Ever since Achashverosh got his new hot wife, we can't sleep. Why? Because after every act of intimacy, he says, guys, bring me a drink. Guys, bring me a cigarette. Bring me a drink. So 10 times a night, this king is waking us up because of all the action that he's getting, right? So he's driving us insane. So Bo Vinatal Aris B'Seifel, let's poison him, Kidei Sheyama, so that he'll die, because his crazy habits So that's why your kasha gets stronger, because you see, he was mamish mishiga with Esther. He was mishiga with Esther, yet vice the was still able to get away. The Hein Lo Yoydin, they didn't know he came in just at the right time. The Hein Lo Yoydin, they didn't know he Mordechai Mordechai was a member of the Sanhedrin, and he knew all 70 languages, so he heard exactly what they said. Omer Loi. So the buddy said to his friend, we can't do this because you need two people working together to poison the king. Why do you need two people together to poison the king? Because if I put the poison into the cup before I bring it to the king, and I'm holding this cup for a while before I give it to the king, what am I going to do if someone says, drink it, taste it? Because they might spot check me. So I have to be able to put the poison in a second before I give it to the king. So what am I going to do? Stick my hand in my pocket and pull out a cyanide pill and put it in? But if there's a guy beside me, then I can twist around for a second and he can quickly put it in and no one will notice that he's holding it. If I'm holding it, they'll notice it. If somebody else is holding it, they won't notice it. So we need two people there. But the problem is we don't work together. I'm in the drink department and you're in the laundry department. So I'm like, no problem. What I'll do is I'll do a double shift and I'll come help you. What happened was one guy was missing by his shift because he went to the other area. And since they saw his shift was missing, it set off an alarm bell, and that's how they caught him. They were looking for him, of course, because Mordechai told them, the problems are starting, but they only started after HaKadosh Baruch Hu already put in place that Mordechai was a hero. The refuah was there already. Now we're ready for trouble. Hashem will never punish Klal Yisrael until he first creates the antidote. Shenemar, Kirifi Yisrael, and then V'nigla Avoy Nafrayim. First we bring the refuah, then we'll uncover the Averis and punish Klal Yisrael. First Hashem punishes them, and then when the time comes, they get the refuah. Shenemar v'nigav Hashem es Mitzrayim noguf v'rafu. Straight to the pasuk v'ayter. V'yiraz v'einav l'shloach yad v'mordechai levadai. I'm not just going to kill Mordechai. Amar Rava b'tchila v'mordechai levadai. First, he only wanted to kill Mordechai. Ulebesoif b'am Mordechai, but then he wanted to get Mordechai's whole chevraya. Umanu rabbanan. He wanted to kill all the rabbanan. Ulebesoif, and then he says, no, b'chala yudim. I want to wipe out all the Jews. Isn't that how it always works? Hippo poor. Who a goyrel? He made a goyrel. Tana. He even should not fall poor by Chodesh Adar. As soon as the goyrel fell out of Chodesh Adar, he quickly typed it in on Google and he came up with Wikipedia. And the first thing that Wikipedia said is Adar is the month that Moshe died. So he said Gavaltik. Somach Simcha Gedoylo. Why did Moshe die? Other people died too. Why not when Yosef died? Why not when Yaakov died? Because Moshe died because of an Avera. He died, he didn't get into Israel because of an Avera. He wanted to go in, they wouldn't let him in. Oh, Gavaltik. Well, this month where God will die because of an Avera, this is perfect. He was Gavaltik. But he didn't read the end of the Wikipedia article because he was too excited. And that he forgot. If he would have read to the end of the article, he would have seen that Moshe Rabbeinu was born. And the reason why he died in Adar wasn't because of an Avera, it's because Hashem wanted him to be Mashlim Tzloizah. There is a nation. Amarava leka the yoda lishna bishna kahama. There is nobody who is such an expert in a sly way of backhanded undoing somebody and ripping somebody apart than Haman. He was excellent. He would be the best political strategist in today's day and age. He would get any job for any campaign. Omer he wouldn't use Russian dossiers. He would find things that would never get caught. He would undo his enemy candidate easily. Omar Lei, this is what he told Achashverosh. Let's destroy the Jews. Omar Lei, Achashverosh said, trust me, I would love to. But Mistafinu Elakov, I'm afraid of their God, because I looked up, I Googled killing Jews, and a long list of people that got destroyed came up. There was Paroi, and there was Amalek, and I'm a little bit afraid because Google has many lists, and I don't want to be the next on the Google list of what happens when someone who starts up with Klal Yisrael. The Evid B could David become I don't want to happen to me like what happened to this long list of predecessors. Amalei, don't worry. Yashnu and mitzvahs. They're already old for the mitzvahs. They don't do the mitzvahs anymore. So they don't have the same protection that they used to have. So you're good to go. Amalei, but Ispur Rabbanan, I'm sure they have certain Gedolim who are still Erlich. Amalei, Nana, Amecha, they're all the same. These Jews are all the same. They're dumb. Amecharei. You might be worried that all the Jews, if we kill all the Jews, then New York City will be empty, and New Square will be empty, and Lakewood will be empty. There'll be swaths of country that will be empty. I'm going to create big open spaces. Don't worry about it. They're very nicely sprinkled throughout. So it's just going to become a little bit less dense, but there won't be any noticeable gaps in your malchus. You might say, what about the commerce and the business and the banking and the prosperity that Jews bring to every country they're in? Nah, mufura, they're useless. Kapre de zoo, like a mule, shein oisa pairs. It cannot reproduce. The Jews are parasites and they're useless and they don't bring any benefit to the country. The Shema Timer Ikamadintaminayu, what are you gonna what about if there's even one country that they're full of that's going to become empty? I don't want to mess up a country. They're spread out throughout the entire countries of all your kingdom. But the same as Shainas Mikolam, they have weird rules. You know why? They're different from us. They don't eat from us. They won't marry our women. And they won't allow their women to marry us. And they don't do the Dasei Melech. Now, you require mandatory enlistment of every person, miluim. Everybody has to do a couple of weeks of physical labor on behalf of the government. And the Jews, they're always getting paturim, they're always getting out of it. They're always getting exemptions. You know why? Because even we have freedom of religion in Shushan. Even in your kingdom, you have freedom of religion. And they're always pulling the religion card. But they say, because what happens is the mafki l'chulashata, the Shabbos yayim, Pesach yayim. I can't work today. Today's my Sabbath. I can't work today's Passover. Every day they come up with some other religious excuse why they can't work. And therefore, they're parasites. Just get out. And you know how bad they are? They look at you worse than a fly. You're worse than a mosquito in their eyes. Really? How is that? The achlu v'shas, they eat and drink, and they'll be mevazah the king. You know why? If a fly falls into one of their koisais, they're not going to throw out the wine. Zarkoi, they'll throw out the fly. So it's not so disgusting to them, the fly, because they're willing to drink the rest of the wine, even though there was a fly in it. If our master, the king, doesn't touch the inside, like the fly did, touches the outside of the kois, he'll spill it out, and you won't drink it. So they look at you like vermin. Therefore, you should write a gzera, they should get destroyed.
So inadvertently, he was saying all the shvach about the Bnei Yisrael.
That's right.
So how was Ezra? Why did Ezra complain? Why did he tell Ezra that they were all intermarried? Haman said that they don't marry them.
But Lamaisa they did. Omer Shlokish, it doesn't have to be true. Omer Shlokish, Goli v'yadui l'fnemi she'omer v'hoya oilam, she'azid Haman lishka shkolam al Yisrael. The Rebbeinu Shalom knew that Haman was going to use shkolam to destroy Klal Yisrael. So Hashem needed to set us up with a schus to neutralize the force of those shkolim. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it that their shkolim, the shkolim of that we give every ador to the Beis Hamikdash, should come long before Haman came up with this shkolim. And that's what we learned in the Mishnah. Be'echad ba'adar mashmin ala shkolim ve'ala. Okay, let's stop over here, and the Mishnah will be mamshech tomorrow. What a beautiful, beautiful Gemara. Tomorrow we're going to learn a beautiful Gemara again, and I'm going to speak out a gewaltige word that Chaim Tzvi told me from the Ben Yoyada. Okay, have a good tavach, everybody. Thank you very much. Good tavach.
Yosy?
Yes.
Just one quick question. It's a funny question, but the Shihi Pihi, how did Achashverosh? First of all, Shihi Pihi is not much of a shortcut, and
What are you talking about?
me?
Shabbos Hayom Pesach Hayom. Okay, what about it?
First of all, it's not much of a shortcut. Like all of a sudden we have to such a shortcut. First of
Oh,
all,
you wonder
it's-
why it uses that the trickling?
and more than that, I want to go more than that. He was talking to Achashverosh. What's the likelihood that Achashverosh knew the shortcut of Shehi? Like,
No, he said the whole world. The Gemara is just writing the trick. He didn't say that.
okay, I thought he was saying Shehi, but in any case, why is that such an amazing thing to say Shehi as opposed to Shabbos Yom Pesach?
Why
Like,
the
how
Gemara?
much-
The chicken? I don't know. I don't know the cash on the Gemara. It's the printer. It's the printer who printed the Vilna Shas.
Well, that's how you think it is.
Oh, so wasn't the printer the Vilna Shas? Because the Vilna Shas was way later than Rashi. Uh-huh. I heard a Chassidish Shavard on that. The Chassidish Shavard I heard on it. What do you mean Shabbos Hayom Pesach? Pesach is once a year. Shabbos is once a week. What do you mean you never want to work? No. So someone said over a beautiful part. But the Chassidim Makvid, and it was even brought down that a Abai and Robert that talks about how every day they would buy better food and they would leave the next food. What they bought yesterday would leave it for Shabbos.
That's
Right, what-
Shimon Shammai.
Oh, Hillel and Shammai. One of them bought Shammai bought new every day, and Hillel just bought. Right. So shot is every day Ayid has to eat because he's preparing for Shabbos. And Fakir, since there's a mitzvah on Shabbos to eat with an appetite, you have to eat during the weekday. You can't fast all week and suddenly you can eat a lot Shabbos. You have to get yourself used to eating a lot. So Mamela, every day they're busy preparing for Shabbos. Every day they're busy preparing for Pesach. That's what it was. So Mamela attack every day. They always have an excuse. We're always busy preparing. That's